world of artists is moving, stirring. The infertility and emptiness of a whole century has to be compensated. A new artistic movement is born all over Europe. It is a secession from the present. A more modern, free-flowing momentum begins. Its way of thinking spreads quickly and becomes dominant in Central and Eastern Europe as well. Art Nouveau is a period style that influences architecture, fine and applied arts and literature at the same time.
In this era, this region is in development, receptive to novelty. The artists of Art Nouveau create buildings and related artifacts from the design phase to the construction with creativity and at a high quality. People live in absolute harmony with the age itself. The secret of Art Nouveau is using motifs, organic forms close to people.
Art Nouveau returns almost to the tradition of the medieval guilds. The economic stability favors the proliferation of the new style in the region. Mainly, this is why we can still delight at the works of art of creative and often unparalleled minds. The creed of the masters of Art Nouveau can be felt at every corner. Because of its novelty, the style calls to the people of the 21st century as well. We are talking about a period style that we often call total art. The architects do not only design and construct the buildings with the utmost care, but everything else is designed with the same fastidiousness, from doors and windows to the tiles of the stoves. Art Nouveau has different names in different parts of Europe. In the Austro-Hungarian Empire, the word secession and Jugendstil is used, while in France and Belgium it is called Art Nouveau, but it is referred to as modern style in Great Britain, Jugendstil in Germany, Art Joven or Arte Modernismo in Spain, Stile Florale or Stile Inglese in Italy. Art Nouveau in Vienna is the revision of academic art and historicism by a group of young individual artists like Gustav Klimt, Josef Hoffmann, Josef Maria Olbrich, Koloman Moser. In 1897, 49 artists performed their spectacular secession from Künstlerhaus, the artistic center of the city, in an act of protest to create a new art. Their rebellion succeeds, and the new impulses outflow to the neighboring countries, influencing the art of the modern era.
That historicism was regarded as a dead end. Yeah? Just repeating historical styles didn't lead anywhere, because at a certain time you had copied them all. And the question was, what is the contemporary style supposed to be like? What is the style that's appropriate to our present times? And to the new, the new things that we face, like machines, steam machines, and also the technical possibility of steel constructions. Also concrete started to be important. And what is the appropriate style supposed to be? So yeah, this was the way it developed. And then there was, of course, this very, very strong figure, Otto Wagner, who was not that young anymore. He was over 40, but he was young enough to start a completely new way of thinking. Otto Wagner was young enough to learn from his students himself, and that was, I think that was very, very important for Vienna, that he himself was influenced by Joseph Hoffmann and Olbrich, who are two of his most famous students.
Designs of Otto Wagner are centered around the new vital needs of the citizen of the big city, so he turns towards Art Nouveau as opposed to historicism. One of his most important exemplary buildings is the Majolica House, completed in 1899. The plant and flower motifs almost burst out of the wall and fill the whole facade with unstoppable vigor and free flow. The walls are consciously used as two-dimensional surfaces. First, they paint the facade, and the windows are only cut afterwards. Wagner loves working with ceramics and stone. In his buildings, sensible, rational designs can be observed. His works have several different aspects. These features make up the modern Vienna Art Nouveau patterns. Otto Wagner starts drawing the Art Nouveau buildings and bridges of the Vienna Urban Railway in 1894 with his design team of 70 people, including Josef Maria Olbrich and Josef Hoffmann. These constructions still dominate the image of modern Vienna. The Vienna Urban Railway passes through several Art Nouveau gates, which were about to be demolished in the 1960s. Led by the mayor, Helmut Zilk, dozens of architects protested for keeping the gates, emphasizing that the work of art of Otto Wagner cannot be destroyed. Nevertheless, some were eventually demolished. In the city park, we can stroll among the architectural Art Nouveau mementos of the River Wien regulation, constructions by Friedrich Aumann and Josef Hackhofer. Just like the Wien portal, the exit of the tunneled Wien or the promenade alongside the regulated river is decorated with statues and pavilions. The characteristic Art Nouveau meteorological measuring station from 1913 is of special interest. Next to Stadtpark, at the Museum of Applied Arts, you can view the many faces of Art Nouveau creations. The furniture of Tronat, the glass, china and silver objects with their undulating surfaces from the workshops of Josef Hoffmann and Koloman Moser. We gape at the designs of Gustav Klimt for the frieze of Palais Stocklet in Brussels. The hall, staircase and upstairs lecture hall of the extension building along the River Wien, built in 1909 as an enlargement of the museum, reflect the clean stylistic characteristics of the Vienna Secession. The citizens of Vienna are entranced by the Secession building designed by Josef Maria Olbrich. A fantastic floral dome dominates the building, an incredibly inventive new architectural solution. Inside, we can marvel at the world-famous Beethoven frieze of Gustav Klimt. This modern art center acts as a catalyst, and with the Viennese Circle of Artists, it exerts an immense influence on the art of the Central European countries. Just as the Secession building has been operating in its original function for more than 100 years, the Postal Savings Bank has also been serving the same purpose since its construction. Its facade, the white marble plates attached with iron bolts, accentuated by aluminium caps, the granite of the base and the horizontal proportioning create a massive closed shape reminiscent of a money box. The symbolism of the decoration suits the function perfectly. The Postal Savings Bank building is uncompromising, modern, practical. Its conceptual, creative radicalism points the way to modernism. The Church of St. Leopold was designed by Otto Wagner between 1904 and 1907, defying all formal rules. From its elevated position within the territory of the Psychiatric Institute of the Steinhofgründe, it towers the city with the golden shimmer of its dome covered with gilded tiles. The walls of the church are covered with white marble plates secured with iron bolts. The colorful windows of Koloman Moser and the bronze statues of Otto Szymkowicz are in harmony with the altars and liturgical objects. This newest, particular modern Viennese style that has been introduced in architecture has completely permeated painting and applied arts and has achieved such splendid results that it is now acknowledged all over the world. The architects returning home from the studios of Berlin, Paris, Vienna, such as Ödön Lechner, Károly Kós, Marcel Komor, Dezső Jakab, József Vágó, László Vágó, Ferenc Reichle, Ede Magyar and their followers intertwine the style of Art Nouveau with the motif system of their homeland, because they want to break away from the European historical styles like the Italian Renaissance. The Museum of Applied Art opens in 1897. The architects, Ödön Lechner and Gyula Pártos, express the function of the building in its exterior as well. They use oriental forms, round and serrated arches, and Hungarian ornaments, motifs from embroidery. The unique story of Art Nouveau architecture in Budapest is defined by Ödön Lechner, who, following his interest in traditional applied arts and especially traditional pottery, gets acquainted with the colorful tiles suitable for paneling the exterior of the buildings. He starts a cooperation with the Zsolnay factory, creating the utterly peculiar atmosphere of the Hungarian Art Nouveau movement. Lechner prepares his design for the Geological Institute with the criticism received for the unconventional building of the Museum of Applied Arts in his mind. In the design, he uses motifs that are much more restrained, but during the construction he sets his creative ambition free and carries out several changes.
Lechner finds a unique architectural language with the buildings of the Postal Savings Bank. He uses folk ornaments inside and outside. He can bring about his novel ideas consistently, from the furniture and the contemporary equipment to the lift.
Lechner's building was constructed in 1900, close in time to Otto Wagner's Postal Savings Bank. Both are innovative buildings in their own ways. The ornamental roof tiles of the Postal Savings Bank show the same animated atmosphere as the previous Lechner buildings. On the facade, bees and beehives symbolize the diligent process of accumulation and refer to the function of the building. The bullheads are the transformations of the treasure of Nagyszent Miklós. The National Educational and Instructional Institute for the Blind was built between 1899 and 1904 in the style of Hungarian Art Nouveau, with the designs of two excellent architects of the era, Sándor Baumgarten and Zsigmond Herzeg. The railings with rooster heads, the stained windows and the chandeliers of the Nádor Hall invite the onlookers to daydreaming in the world of fairy tales. The Music Academy of Budapest is a real curiosity in architectural history. Very few so richly decorated buildings dedicated to music have survived from the turn of the last century. Elements of historicism and Art Nouveau styles are mixed. As a unique mixture of style, with the facade made primarily of stone instead of ceramics, the Academy of Music was built between 1904 and 1907. However, the motifs borrowed from the Assyrian and Egyptian architecture combine Kolb and Giergel's way of thinking with Lechner's philosophy. Despite the critical voices, Kobe and Giergel actually turned to the Middle East for inspiration. It is also telling of the era that they use reinforced concrete, which is less known in Hungary at the time. Szilárd Zielinski, the engineer importing the system from France, creates a pioneering and brilliant reinforced concrete structure. The best craftsmen and artists work on the building of the Academy of Music, such as Miksa Róth, Vilmos Zsolnai, Géza Maróti or Aladár Kőrösfői Kris. The ornaments of the interior, influenced by antique and Renaissance originals, mainly reflect the impact of the Austrian secession. Just like Otto Wagner, Hungarian architects also try to approach Art Nouveau as researchers, since the style ensures great, sometimes extreme freedom of forms. They enhance the stylistic elements of the European Art Nouveau and build villas, residential and public buildings and churches with this mindset. The Budapest Zoo and Botanical Gardens, designed by Károly Kós and Dezső Zrumecki, is a special scene of Art Nouveau. With their wooden turrets, the majority of the buildings evoke the Transylvanian folk architecture, especially the architectural heritage of Kolotaszeg. It is one of the most popular attractions in Hungary. The main goal of the architects was to create an architectural environment corresponding to the ones the animals come from. With its oriental glamour, the Elephant House, designed in 1912 by Kornél Neuschloss, is one of the most sophisticated buildings in the zoo. The Hungarian national style does exist. This visual language has developed astonishingly, and it is touching how well it has conserved itself. Art Nouveau spreads in Slovenia after the reconstruction following the earthquake of Ljubljana in April 14, 1895. Many buildings, including several in the very center of the city, had collapsed. The earthquake changed the appearance of Ljubljana forever. The disaster gave the town's mayor, Ivan Hribar, a chance to turn a provincial town into a city that finally reflected its status as the Slovenian national capital. Hribar engaged the architect Max Fabiani, who worked in Vienna at the time. Fabiani developed an urban plan of Ljubljana, beginning an unprecedented wave of new construction. In the 15 years after the quake, more than 400 buildings were rebuilt or newly constructed in the city, most of them in Art Nouveau style. This greatly contributes to the glamour of Ljubljana today. Max Fabiani made plans for a square symbolizing the Slovenian national identity, today Miklosichev Park, in 1900. The park was almost completely surrounded by Art Nouveau buildings built between the years 1900 and 1907, and they represent the most beautiful Art Nouveau set of buildings in Ljubljana. The Art Nouveau buildings around it were commissioned by the wealthy locals, mostly of Slovenian origin. Risper House was first erected on Fabiani's plans, and it was an example for other buildings around the square. Another important master of Slovenian Art Nouveau is Cyril Method-Koch, whose competence is reflected in the milieu of modern Ljubljana. One of the most interesting buildings is the so-called Hauptmann House, which was renovated in 1904 in Art Nouveau style. The moderate ornaments of the facade, the plastered flat surfaces, indicate that the Slovenian capital had the strongest intellectual ties with the imperial city. The symbolism of the Vanzas building of the People's Loan Bank, constructed in 1907, resembles Otto Wagner's floral motifs of flowers and vines. The subtly restrained geometrical facade is countered by the figural statues of the gable. In the city centre, you can see one elegant modern building after the other dominating the streets. The Hotel Union, constructed in 1905 after the designs of Josip Vanzas, is an unrivaled sight. The more than 100-year-old hotel is one of the largest buildings in the city centre. Even its location is symbolic, since it stands on the spot where the Baroque city gives way to the Art Nouveau centre. The complex iron structure of its roof is an important memento of modern art. The elegant dome above the avant-cours on its corners beckons guests from afar. Among others, Orson Welles, the Dalai Lama and Queen Elizabeth II admired the beauty of the main square from the windows of the hotel. Dragon Bridge is the first important piece of Art Nouveau architecture in Ljubljana, built in 1901. Dragons, Art Nouveau figures, are the medieval guardians of the city centre. The motto of Emperor Franz Joseph, Viribus Unitas, can still be read on the unique reinforced concrete bridge. After the birth of the Vienna Secession, local artists in Croatia borrowed the style in 1898. The Society of Croatian Artists leave the Art Society of Zagreb and wish to enforce a modern approach as opposed to historicism. They play an indispensable role in forming the national identity to which Art Nouveau wishes to respond. The group is led by painter Vlaho Bukovac, who is called by contemporary journalists a lively personality bursting with strength. Art Nouveau is extremely important in Croatian history because it does not only influence the contemporary art, but has a key role in society as well. It helps keep pace with contemporary Europe. The key person, the catalyst of the movement, is Vlaho Bukovac. Another important painter is Bela Chikos Šesija, who studies in Munich, where he meets Franz Stuck, a representative of Jugendstil, and he brings the new style back to Zagreb. The architects of the city started using Art Nouveau motifs. In the beginning, city officials strongly opposed the designs, but the new style soon broke through.
Architecturally, in this development of Art Nouveau style, have changed the type of not only the facade and the style of the embellishment of the edifice, buildings, and so on, but also changed the way how the apartments, buildings have been planned. It was very important because it have introduced, not in a technical way, in that time have been introduced new materials, iron structure and so on. So the most important and the largest building built in Zagreb in Art Nouveau style, this is our, I would call it old University National Library. Its state archive today was actually built in that way. So with the introduction of completely new technical way of building.
The interior is richly ornamented. The symmetric use of glass, metal, wood and stone is the result of playful imagination. The owls overlooking the cardinal points safeguard craftsman's heritage from past times. The preeminent building of Croatian Art Nouveau has a modest facade whose geometrical ornaments allude to the stylistic principles of the Viennese Art Nouveau and the German Jugendstil. The Kalina house, designed by Basel and built in 1904, is especially interesting. It shows that the impact of the Viennese style is apparent in Zagreb, which is not surprising, since the architect himself studied in Vienna at the Akademie der Bildenden Künste. The house shows an undeniable affiliation with Wagner's Majolica house. Its ornamentation, the glazed ceramic tiles of the facade, the decorative floral pattern on the avant-cours all allude to the Vienna secession. Art Nouveau is a very short artistic period. It doesn't even last 2 decades, but it changes the visual image of Croatia completely, and its impact is still strong. Residential buildings, mansions and public institutions were built one after the other, and they adopted many of the motifs of the new trend. In the Art Nouveau exhibition of the Zagreb Museum of Arts and Crafts, we can remember the craftsmen and admire the many artifacts used in everyday life. Not only was the style present, but it also left its trace in furniture industry, everyday objects and clothing as well. Art Nouveau recognizes no borders, and the style is mixed with the specific features of the regions. A particular example of this artistic interplay is one of the most beautiful Art Nouveau buildings in Hungary, the Rök Palace in Szeged. The proprietor of the building, Iván Rök, is a nephew of Mihály Munkácsy and a frequent guest of the world-famous painter in his residence in Paris. He is open to the new style, Art Nouveau, which is a crucial factor in the architectural design of the building. The architect, Ede Magyar, is influenced in part by the Majolica House of Vienna and the Kalina House of Zagreb, but in the method of applying the floral motifs, also by the French and Belgian school. The floral and vegetal ornaments proliferate on the facade, in the staircase, conjuring the atmosphere of the Hotel Tassel of Victor Horta. The ornamental motifs, such as the water lilies, allude to the river Tisza, which has played a vital role in the history of the city. The architect avoids sharp edges. He prefers undulated and crumpled surfaces. He forms the surfaces of the facade with sculpturesque tools. The balconies and oriel windows are built in an innovative way.
A nő, a femme fatale, tehát a végzett asszonya az egyébként
The dangerous female figure, the femme fatale, is a favorite theme of Art Nouveau. On the original facade of the Rök Palace, there were various paintings of water fairies. But the female members of the Rök family had them overpainted at the beginning of the century because they didn't like them.
Ezek elkerültek erről az épületről, de valóban magyar Ede építészetére ez jellemző volt.
An Art Nouveau masterpiece in the pedestrian area of Szeged is the Ungár-Meyer Palace. Ede Magyar gives ornamented gables, onion-domed turrets, features resembling the prows of boats, wrought iron railings, balconies, and even an estradome to the building standing on the corner. The ceiling of the reinforced concrete business premises of the ground floor are covered with painted stuccos. The most beautiful part of the building, the huge dome-like corner turret, is surrounded by female figures made of 5 tin plates, composed of gently bending surfaces. The entrance of the reconstructed Goldschmidt house also shelters graceful female figures. The other significant architect of his own town on the bank of the river Tisza is Ferenc Reichler, who follows Lechner and uses folk motifs generously in his ornaments. His most important Art Nouveau building in Szeged is the Grove Palace. The lavishness of the golden mosaic of the facade, using the folkloristic motifs of the traditional shepherd's coat, supplemented with the Hungarian-style vegetal motifs of the sculpted reliefs, lends a luxurious oriental glamour to the building. The house of Ferenc Reichel himself is structured by balconies and oriel windows decorated with Hungarian-style Zsolnay ceramics. In Szeged, several wonderful Art Nouveau buildings use the folkloristic features typical of the art of Lechner. On the walls of the upper elementary girls' school, the winding ribbons of the brick paneling, branching horizontally and vertically, alternate in a nice rhythm with the gently curving ornamental edges, the plastered surfaces adorned with blue floral motifs. The facade of the Moritz house is decorated with motifs reminiscent of the traditional shepherd's coat. The Deutsch Palace is structured into a fascinating harmony by the moderate stylized floral motifs, and the window apertures are finely decorated with the elements of pastoral carvings. On the marble statue of songwriter Pista Dankó, designed by Ede Margó, which stands in front of the building, the fine details of the bramble roses drooping to the ground reflect the tastes of Art Nouveau. One of the most interesting buildings of the row of palaces is the Beregi House, which mixes the characteristics of the northern German Jugendstil with the features of Hungarian folk art. The wrought iron details and the nicely drawn ornaments at the bottom of the corner turret are compliments to the tastes of the creator, Pál Kótai. The playful, impish liveliness and asymmetry of the facade makes the Mahrer house a unique example of geometrical Art Nouveau. our gaze can wander at the robust forms of the building, on the cylindrical oriel windows, the avant-cours with loggias proportioned with columns, the corner turrets resembling bastions. Art Nouveau also appears in the religious architecture together with the features of previous architectural styles. One example is the Synagogue of Szeged, designed by Lipót Baumhorn. The building was finished in 1902. At present, it is the fourth biggest synagogue in the world. The Iron House and the Szeged-Csongrád Savings Bank too, on the main square of Szeged, were designed by Baumhorn. Both show the stylistic traits of Art Nouveau and eclecticism. It is typical of Lipót Baumhorn to be open to several styles of the era in the details of his houses. The water tower, fondly known as the Old Lady, designed by Szilárd Zielinski, is the earliest reinforced concrete industrial monument in Hungary. The features of the geometrical trend of Art Nouveau give a unique appearance to the still functioning building. With its simple, creative, Puritan, unadorned look, it is the model of engineering inventiveness. The economic progress opened the way for the modern art movements in Subotica as well. The Liovic Palace, built between 1892 and 1893, sets the tone with its simple appearance as opposed to the richly decorated eclectic buildings surrounding it. The designers, Eden Lechner and Gyula Pártos, brought the spirit of Art Nouveau to Subotica with this house. Heading towards the city centre, we can gaze at the houses built between 1903 and 1905 by one of the most inventive local architects, Ferenc Reichel. These buildings are at once mystical and poetic. The tulips and hearts appearing in different parts lend a unique folkloristic flavor to the Reichel Palace. The middle part of the building is dominated by a large vaulted niche, which is adorned by motifs of kalotaszeg on Zsolnai ceramic plates. The oriel windows protruding from the facade, the intertwining wrought iron railings of plant motifs on the terraces, the glittering Murano glass paste mosaics covering the wall of the niche make a lavish composition. In the direct vicinity of the Reichler houses, there's the Sonnenbergs Palace, built in 1910, whose rigid straight ornaments and floral motifs are structured into regular geometrical configurations. In Korzo Street, works began in 1907 with the designs of two architects from Budapest, Dezső Jakab and Marcel Komor, to build the new Subotica Savings Bank Palace and residential house, which is splendid in every detail. The contractor was Titus Maczkowicz, an architect from Subotica. The style of the building is Hungarian Art Nouveau. The avant-cours on the corner is accentuated by a half-dome cover reminiscent of a cloister vault. The asymmetry of the facades is secured by two upstairs balconies ending at the line of the roof in an Art Nouveau floral yellow-blue hued zsolnai pyrogranite molding. Among the ornaments of the facade, colorful ceramic plates and pink stone sculpting compete with each other. Symbolism, characteristic for banks such as beehives or squirrels, and also Hungarian folk motifs such as peacock ornaments and grape vines are used alternately. The resident entrance, opening to Corso Street, is also adorned with female figures leaning on their elbows, protruding from the plane of the wall and flanked by stone columns representing the Tree of Life. The base is made from pink marble from Siklós. The two-storied city apartment building, designed by Pál Vadász, was conceived in 1913 in the spirit of the Vienna Secession. The most dominant part of the building is the rounded corner with a pointed copper tin spire. The stair hall houses the oldest and most beautiful Art Nouveau lift in Subotica. The railings, the doors and the wall tiles are adorned alternately by geometrical forms, noble in their simplicity, and plant motifs with tulips. The symbol of the town and the community is the City Hall, designed in 1908 by two students of Lechner, Marcel Komor and Dezső Jakob. Even its size is imposing. Its appearance is enriched by 4 atriums, decorated entrances, impressive attic walls, and a multitude of statues and sculpted reliefs. It is a unique piece of art with the play of the colorful zsolnai tiles, its dominating roofs and the massive ground floor bordered with a stone strip. Sculpted masterpieces carved from marble and wrought iron details also adorn the building.
Komor és Jakab nagyon sok magyar népművészeti elemet használt a Szabadkai Városházánál.
Komor and Jakab used a lot of folk motifs in the City Hall, especially Matyó motifs and the ones from Kalocsa. These decorations are used in the wall paintings, the ceiling of the banquet hall, the landings, the complementary meeting rooms. So the City Hall of Subotica is an outstanding example of Hungarian Art Nouveau architecture.
The atmosphere of the interior is dominated by eosin-glazed zsolnai ceramic ornaments, lavishly beautiful wooden carvings, stained glass prepared in the workshop of Miksa Róth, and decorative wall paintings inspired by Transylvanian folk architecture. The town's skyline is dominated by the 76-meter-high tower, rising high as an exclamation mark. Gaping at the panorama, one sees the domes of the synagogue rising above the roofs. The building, constructed between 1900 and 1903, is a landmark and unique architectural masterpiece. The elaborate outer coating is characterized by glazed round end titles of green, yellow, brown and blue, red brick paneling and colorful stained glasses. Its architectural language wishes to send a message through symbols in its every detail. The interior, with its slender columns, pilasters, the floral plaster reliefs running along the balustrade of the gallery, and the Hungarian folk motifs of the wall painting, the ornaments, the colors, all wish to evoke the cheerfulness and joie de vivre of the Garden of Eden. Facing the synagogue, there's the Demeter Palace designed by the Vágó brothers in 1906, whose novel geometrical Art Nouveau style will be exemplary for some of the local architects. The vaulted oriel windows, the narrow windows reminiscent of embrasures, the heart and bird-shaped ornaments, and the typical three-winged windows are all frequent architectural features of the brothers. Through the smart combination of these motifs, a vertical emphasis dominates the facade. Park of Police, created between 1908 and 1912, is a nice feature of the region of Subotica. One can take a stroll among several Art Nouveau buildings here. The ornamental entrance of the main promenade used to function as a water tower too. In designing the decoration, the two artists, Marcel Komor and Dezső Jakab, were inspired by folk ornaments, motifs of lace and embroidery. Reaching the lake, we can take a walk among the buildings of the Grand Terrace, the Women's Lido, the Memorial Fountain and the Music Pavilion, which were all influenced by the Transylvanian branch of Art Nouveau. Carved wood dominates the structures and the exteriors. Colored folk-art floral motifs are used as decoration. The city centre in Oradea, one of the typical Art Nouveau examples of architecture in Central Europe, was a result of the economic situation of the local middle class. Their attitude can still be sensed. The Black Eagle Palace is the most spectacular Art Nouveau complex of buildings in the town. The palace was designed by Marcel Komor and Dezső Jakab, and it was built in 1909. The shopping arcades with glass roofs are the examples of the assimilation to Europe. Think of the similar shopping arcades in Paris, London, Milan or even Budapest. The most splendid interiors are those of the halls with public functions. The hotel, the restaurant, the theatre halls and the two entertainment halls are all richly decorated. The repository of motifs contains folkloristic plant and zoomorphic elements. Close to the Black Eagle Palace, there's the sophisticated masterpiece of the Vágó brothers with its classic proportions, the Moscovich Adolf and Sons Palace. Its decoration represents the Viennese geometrical style characterized by rigorous design. The main facade is forcefully proportioned by rectangular windows with rounded corners. The main ornaments of the facade are the yellow and green ceramic tiles and there's graffiti. During the renovation of the stately and eclectic neo-Log synagogue Zion, the Art Nouveau features were accentuated, reflected in the winding, floral design of the iron railing inside and the wall painting. Crossing the river, the iron railings of the bridge represent the German geometric Jugendstil. On the other side, the floral stuccos of the Poinar house catch our eyes. The masterpiece of Ferenc Staril, built in 1907, has perfectly symmetrical facades with colored ceramic ornaments and plant features on the window frames and the molding. On the buildings of the State Theatre, styles merge, and Art Nouveau ornaments can also be found. Next to the theatre, the Odorian houses are the first works of Marcel Komor and Dezső Jakab, in which Art Nouveau is mixed mostly with features inspired by folk art. The Darvas Laros house is justly considered the most original Art Nouveau residential house in Oradea, a building from the turn of the 19th and 20th centuries, built meriting European standards.
Un stil geometric, un stil purist, un stil extrem de rafinat, minimalist, pe care l-au reprezentat cu strălucire.
This sophisticated geometrical style characterizes the architectural work of the Vago brothers. It can be seen on the palaces and houses designed by József and László Vago. An example is their Darvas Laros house, which is a delight to see. It guides our gaze. It is an architectural masterpiece. Once entering, one feels like being in Vienna.
Advancing on the pedestrian street, the blue color of the Moszkowicz Miksa Palace is fascinating. This building is yet another proof that Kálmán Rimanóczy has a special attraction to the Munich secession, the so-called Lilienstil. During the construction, prefabricated units were used for the first time in Oradea, concrete blocks reinforced with metallic filaments. It is adorned with rich symbolic plant features, perfect arches, and rich elaborate Art Nouveau wrought iron ornaments. Plant features, flowers with long stems, curved lines dominate the building. On the other side of the streets, the two facades of the Stern Palace facing the street follow the rules of symmetry. Kálmán Rimanóczy and Vilmos Rendes decorate the building profusely, dominated by multicolored motifs of tulips and peacock feathers reminiscent of sgraffiti. The Ullmann Palace was built by Sándor Ullmann and designed by Ferenc Löbl. The building represents motifs characteristic of the Jewish religion. The menorah is guarded by two lions, and numerous floral and geometrical features are used. The ground floor is covered by blue-green tiles. The windows and doors of the attic are semicircular. The facade ends in a trapezoid attic. It is at the end of our journey that we can really understand the freedom of Art Nouveau, which is reflected in the Art Nouveau wonders of Vienna, Budapest, Ljubljana, Zagreb, Szeged, Subotica and Oradea. Its world of architectural forms is a real means of expression that is effective even today. It is realistic and extraordinary at the same time, offering insight, giving energies to all those gaping at its wonders. There's no better feeling than experiencing it personally.